the biggest difference between men and women is that men have singular focus and women have diffused focus. That very specific difference is essentially the foundation of why we behave so differently in so many aspects of life. And it just like, if you think about this being the root cause, so many things that we do in life and ways that we misunderstand each other revolves around this root difference. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ancient Intelligence. You've got your host, Anya Shack here, and today I want to get into it. So today I want to talk about the number one biggest difference between men and women. And I know that's juicy, spicy, and exciting. I really want to get into this framework that I have taken from Alison Armstrong. So she is amazing. This is actually one of my very favorite things to research and talk about. And she's been studying men for 40 plus years. And so for her real thesis, when understanding the differences between men and women, is this notion that, biologists and historians love to talk about hunter-gatherers. And for her, she thinks that really it's not about hunter-gatherers as one unique group, but it's about hunters and gatherers, and really understanding the psychological differences of men and women based on our evolutionary biologies as hunters or gatherers, and like what our roles were during that time way back when, and how that still affects us today, and how our brains and our bodies are still wired to really act like a hunter or a gatherer. And it's super fun and super simple, something to be taken, not super seriously, but I think a really beautiful framework for understanding some very basic foundational differences between men and women. Now, a lot of y'all might be thinking, how overly simplified is that? We're not just our evolutionary biology, we're so much more than that. Fair enough. I am the first to talk about how human beings are different than other animals because of our spirit, because of our consciousness, because of our connection to God. But when I look around, I see that most people don't even have this basic stuff right. And so it's all about understanding some of this biology and some of this psychology, and then adding complexity onto that. But so many people are missing this like very foundational information, and they're misunderstanding each other. So with that bit of a prelude, let's get into it. So a hunter, a hunter versus a gatherer. And it's so interesting. And whenever I first heard Alison Armstrong talk about this, it was just like, it makes so much sense. And I'm not even going to wait till the very end of this video, but like the very biggest difference between men and women is that men have singular focus and women have diffused focus. That very specific difference is essentially the foundation, because the root of why we behave so differently in so many aspects of life. And it just like, if you think about this being the root cause, so many things that we do in life and ways that we misunderstand each other revolves around this root difference, essentially. And so Alison Armstrong also loves to say a lot. She says that women sometimes look at men like a hairy woman, like they're looking at a man, but in their psychology, in their minds, they're thinking that he's misbehaving. Like because they almost act as if he's just a hairy woman, they have this subconscious idea that his brain works just like hers, that he also has diffused focus. And if that's true, then he must know the right thing to do, and he's just not doing it right. And it's that thinking that causes so many problems, because obviously that's the most false thing on the planet. He has a completely different operating system because he's operating as singular focused. And so sometimes for men too, men are not really able to understand the desires, needs, complaints, reasons why a woman will think about certain things in the way that she is because he's operating single focused, and he's pretending like she should be operating single focused subconsciously, right? And so really it all comes down to this. So the hunter, if you think about what the hunter does, okay, He goes out and he hunts the deer. He hunts the game. What does he have to do in order to hunt the game? He has to be singularly focused on the prey, cut out all periphery thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotions, concerns in order to make that happen. He has a very clear objective, and it takes a great deal of skill, focus, training, precision, all of that to make this happen. And so he's always operating in this singularly focused way. That's his mission, is to capture the game and bring home the food, right? And I say precision too, that choice of words is very important. People like to say that men are simple, and I actually don't find that to be true. In all my studies and everything I've learned, men are not simple. They're actually just really precise. That's what I love about men. They're just so precise. And when they're asked a question, they really think about it because they want to give a precise answer. Whereas a woman's not really focused on precision. She has a lot of other magical, beautiful qualities. Precision is not one of them. And so if you think about it, a hunter is singular focused. That is his mission. That is his purpose. Okay. He is going after the game. So what is the gatherer doing? So the gatherer is going out into the meadow, and she is using her scan vision to see what berries, what plants, what's ripe, what's poisonous, what can work for now, what can work for later, what is important for someone that might be sick to use, right? A woman has evolved this diffused focus, which is scan vision, which is the opposite of singular focus. She can see everything all at once, right? And there's not a lot of precision required. There's not a lot of strict attention to one thing and focus. It's more about creating connection with the other gatherers and sharing and communicating what, how, when. Let's plan this person's birthday. Let's make sure that elderly person has what they need with these plants that we're picking. Let's talk about yesterday. Let's gather all of this, gather all of the information, right? Gather everything that we need in addition to the plants and the berries so that we can take this back home and make the home, right? Continue the medicines we need, the food, everything that we need to do. So if you really think about it, it's like the gatherer is gathering it all, whereas the hunter is singularly focused on the one thing. And this framework is just, everything comes from this. Everything comes from this. This notion of men needing transition time, whereas women don't need transition time. So that's one big difference that comes from this difference from men and women. So if you think about a hunter, hyper focused, hyper intense, he's been planning, he's executed. What does he need to do when he's finished, right? He needs to completely disconnect. He needs time to transition to the next activity. Whereas for a gatherer, for a woman, she's not been so hyper focused. She's been in connection. So she can move from activity to activity to activity right after one another, and many times all at once, because that is just how her diffused focus works. So women really evolved this multitasking ability. And physically, our bodies just support us in doing these things that we were designed to do, right? If we think about today, it's a little hard to create this real distinction between men and women for a lot of people because we're all sitting at our computers, everyone's typing, everyone is doing things that are interchangeable with the opposite sex. And back in the day, hunters and gatherers, that wasn't happening. Obviously, a man in his upper body and his strength and the way that his body is set up, he is set up to be the protector, to be the one that goes out and gets the food, right? And she is set up to be with the other women in the tribe, to be gathering, obviously, to be having children, to be caretaking, to be nurturing. And that's why it's such a difficult thing sometimes. What I think is happening a lot of times today is people have such a difficulty understanding the value of a woman in the context of the past, because the value of a man is something that historically and really always has been very measurable, right? Like, did he bring back the food? The hunter, did he go? Did he get back the food? Whereas the value of a woman, it's always ever changing. It's, did she help this one sick person? Did she make that child smile? Did she pick the berries that were needed to be picked? There's so much going on in the background. There's so many things. And it's not so, it's not measured, right? And so that's why we have such a hard time. We live in this super hyper masculine world where everything needs to be measured. And so many women are, and men alike, have been tricked into believing that the only way you can feel valuable is if it's measured. And that's why we're having such a hard time with this like alpha female energy. It's like there's so much value in a woman. It's just not measured, especially from the past, right? And so I think that getting back to that and understanding how important that is and really talking about it is super important. And so I just like love this framework. I think it's so great and simple, single versus diffused focus. And if you think about just like modern times, if you think about it, it's just so obvious. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and she was telling me how sometimes she can get so frustrated with her husband because they'll go to a shop or a coffee shop or something, and he'll just be so focused on what he wants. He has no idea that someone needs to get by, or he's taking up too much space or something. And as a woman, you can see everything, scan vision. So like, even if you are looking to order a coffee, if you see someone that needs to scooch by you're very aware of that. And I think men are not. And so for me, it was kind of like taking this a bit as a positive, which is what we should be doing. Like, that's so great that he's so singularly focused on what he wants to achieve, whether it's to buy the coffee or to do whatever he wants to do in his job. He's not conscious to anything that else that's going around. I think that's a testament to the self-esteem and the way that men are so able to take up space and really just, I am here and I'm here to do the thing that I was supposed to do. I think that's an awesome thing. That is a very beautiful masculine trait. And I think, as women, we're always like, oh, like, let me scooch over here. Or like, oh, I don't want to bother you here. That's a very feminine trait, right? Because we're always trying to maneuver. We are multitasking. We have scan vision. We can see it all. That's totally healthy and totally normal for men to behave that way and for women to behave this way. I was sharing this with another person I was talking to yesterday, and he was saying that someone had like, he had heard that this was like toxic masculinity for a man to like not be aware of other things going on because he's so focused. I think that's garbage, total garbage. I think it's a wonderful thing that men do. And I think it's something we can be inspired by. And there's so many beautiful things women do that men can be inspired by, right? Like, what are we doing with all of this like competition? It's so nuts. So when we see the difference in operating system, we can really start to treat each other in a way that supports the other. For example, as a man with a singular focus, if he's really busy doing something, as a woman that is aware of this and is conscious to this and respects this, then I can see that he's really busy, and I can say that if I have something really important to say to him, I've seen so many women make this mistake. They just kind of just dump all their complaints and needs onto their husbands, onto their partners in the most inopportune times because they don't respect the difference of singular versus diffused focus. So if I respect that difference, then I'll say to my man, hey, I have something really important I want to talk to you about. When's going to be a good time for you? So you can be singularly focused on it. Just let me know. I'm excited, or whatever that is. But women don't respect a man's need to plan and to separate tasks and to organize in that way. I think it's really, really important for women to learn how to do this. And so the more they understand about a man and his singular focus, the more half the things he does make so much sense. All the things he does make so much sense, right? I was re-listening to an Alison Armstrong thing recently, and she was even talking about like, when you, as a woman, when you are cooking a meal, you're thinking about everyone and everything and all of the ingredients and all of the decor and everything. And if you tell your man, like, okay, we need this, we need that, we need that, sometimes it's really, for him, it's like, what is the one thing I need? Like, what is the thing that you need? And if you tell him to go get one thing, he's going to get the one thing, right? He's really going to just go bring back that one thing, and that'll be mission accomplished. And so women, we don't think that way. A really great example too, I was on a road trip with some friends, two of which are a married couple. And it was like, what was happening? There was like a moment of like, we need to get gas, right? And I watched this play out because I'm, studying this and this is my expertise. I am just, always mesmerized by people and what they say and what they don't say, and the disagreements that occur because of what they don't say, and what they don't know about these differences. So husband says, we need to get gas. Wife says, okay, there's a great gas station up a couple blocks somewhere else. He says, no, there's one right here. I'll just go right here. She says, no, just go to the other one. It's better. He says, I don't get it. I'm just going to go right here. What are you talking about? And she says, oh, I'm so mad at you. I'm so frustrated. Don't you realize they have this and they have that and they have the other thing and they have the fourth thing? And he's like, what? She's already pre-thought about all the things she needs to gather because she's thought about the next day, and she's thought about something the kid might need, and she's thought about something else. That's the way her brain works. He hasn't obviously thought about that. He's singularly focused on gas right now. And so it's just such of course, right? But then on the flip side, there's so much magic and beauty in singular focus, and the way that a woman can inspire and encourage a man to be her greatest supporter and helper, by letting him know what she needs in a very clear, direct way. And it's just, and this is why men are they're just so committed, right? When they have a hard task to do, when they have something difficult, they will not stop. It will be painful. It will be intense. It will be dark. But especially if they have that support and appreciation from their women, from the woman in their lives, they will accomplish the mission. Like in hunter speak, they will bring back the food. They will do it. And it will feel so good for them. And there's so many beautiful little, the more and more I learn about this, the more there is to learn about this. Every little thing has another little thing. Every little doorway of information has another little doorway. And for me, I'm just so curious about this, and I love this. And I just think it's such a fantastic way to start living, and for so many people, it's just so incredibly important to understand what is really important to a man, what is really important to a woman. And so it's just really, really amazing. So the idea of like multitasking and thinking ahead, getting ready to go for a trip is a really funny example too. For a man, he's thinking, okay, well, we pack and then we get in the car and we go. That's the trip. For a woman, it's like, I got to pre-clean. I got to make sure that the house looks good for when we get back. I got to make sure all these other things are done. Otherwise, the trip won't be the trip. I'll be thinking about all that stuff during the trip because of the way our multitasky scan brain works. And so for a man to have the way I just talked about all of the empathy that women can have for a man and his power and his singular focus, we can flip that as well. A man to have empathy for a woman, like, oh wow, she's really concerned about all these things that for her are very much interrelated with this trip. For me, they're not, but for her, they are. How can I be of service, right? How can I be of service instead of being frustrated with her? How can I just let her know that I'm on her team? I'm on her side. I get her. I want to be of help, And I think that's really, really, really cool, beautiful, beautiful thing. There's so many wonderful ways to even be of service and be of support. Of course, it's asking what you can do. And then if there's something that she believes that you can do well, then you'll do it. But there's also this notion of being just present and being grounded and being company while a woman is doing all of those things, right? Like getting the house together before you leave, instead of just like rushing her and being kind of dictatorish about getting in the car and going, right? And so I think these are just wonderful, wonderful ways to think about the hunter and the gatherer and all of the ways that this manifests. So I talked about the transition time. I talked about um, getting ready to go for trips. I talked about listening, right? The way women can really understand that a man really does want to do one thing at a time. And listening to you is one of those things. He can't cook a meal and do it really well and also listen to you and do it really well. He wants to do both things really well. So give him the opportunity to do both things really, really well. And just watch. Just watch what you get to have from that. Last episode, I was interviewing one of my favorite women. She's a Rebbitzin in Dallas, Texas, a rabbi's wife. And I was asking her, what is the best way that your husband supports you? And she said, well, he just loves like who I am and what I come up with and my ideas. And he's so all about what I create and my ideas. And I think that just really hit for women. It's like, what is being a woman? It's like birthing ideas, birthing creativity, having these amazing intuitions, right? Being able to be heard and understood. And what she then said is the way he supports me is by helping me execute those things, by helping me execute them. And it's such a magical thing for a woman to understand. And I will just say this right here, right now, like a man is better at executing a plan than a woman is. He's better at it. He's got singular focus. He's clearer. He's got more clarity. He knows how to do things one step at a time in a way that is less chaotic and less overwhelming. That's a magic of a man and a woman working together, right? She births this idea and he says, hell yeah, let's do it. Here's what we got to do. And then for her to surrender any sort of righteousness and to really accept his support out of gratitude and appreciation and thank you. What a match made in heaven. And then so much amazing stuff can be created in that sense. And I really love that. And I think a lot of women crave that. A lot of men don't realize how meaningful it is for women to have their ideas and what they think about different things to be heard, to really be heard. And specifically ideas, oh, I want to change that to this, right? That's creative expression. That's feminine energy. And when a man shuts it down or ignores it, it's really hurtful. And so I think there's this incredible ability for men to understand this like multitasky kind of creative energy that is scan vision and is always having ideas, and for a woman to understand how incredible a man is at singularly focusing on one of them, choosing one and supporting in that way. And with that singular focus, one thing I've learned so much about men is how when they care about a woman, they will become almost accountable for the things that she desires, right? And just going hand in hand with this conversation around a man helping a woman execute an idea, that idea is officially his idea. He becomes accountable to that idea because he loves you. He cares about you. You're important to him. And so, especially if you want his support and you appreciate him, he will throw down. He will help you execute this idea. And if we could start living from that space when it comes to partnering and co-creating, man, the fulfillment, really, really meaningful. And I think all of this just kind of goes into a little bit of respect. Like, how can we respect this big difference that men and women have? And there's so many more, like, like I said, based on the singular versus diffused focus difference, there's so many more just things that differ between us, that when understood, everything makes so much sense. And then when respected and honored, whoo, such a game changer. So I think maybe I'll even record a part two of this one. But until the next one, I hope that has been a nice little intro to Hunters and Gatherers Part 1. Thanks, y'all. Until the next one. Hello, everybody. You got your host, Anya Shack here, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I am so excited to be here and sharing my wisdom, my truths, all the research I do from pop culture to science to evolutionary psych to really come together and bring y'all the information that men and women really need to understand themselves better and to understand what the other needs better. This is my mission. This is something I'm so passionate about. So if you've gotten some value from this episode, please, please, please share it with someone you know. This helps me grow the podcast, and that is exactly what I intend to do this year. Sending y'all so much love.